The legend of Hera, mother of monsters. When you think of Hera, you probably think of Zeus's jealous wife, the queen of petty revenge who spent her days tormenting innocent women and their children. She's the eternal antagonist, the goddess defined by her fury. But what if that's only half the story? What if the same rage that drove her to punish her rivals also led her to create life, all on her own terrifying, monstrous life? This is the story of how the queen of the gods, the divine protector of marriage, became the mother of monsters. Section 1. The Queen Before the Rage. Before the endless cycle of revenge, Hera was the Queen of Olympus and a powerhouse in her own right. She wasn't just Zeus's wife. As a daughter of the Titans Cronus and Rhea, she was one of the original 6 Olympians who overthrew their father. Her name, Hera, actually means protector, a title that perfectly foreshadowed the fierce and often brutal lengths she would go to in defense of her domain. Hera was the goddess of marriage, childbirth, and family. She was the divine matriarch, the embodiment of the sacred bond that held society together. When she married Zeus, their union was meant to be the ultimate symbol of order and stability in the cosmos. The great irony is that the king of the gods, the man who was supposed to be her partner, would become the greatest threat to the institution she protected. And in doing so, he would turn his queen from a protector into a predator. Zeus pursued her relentlessly, but Hera, perhaps sensing the heartache to come, resisted him. He finally won her over with a trick, transforming himself into a small, shivering cuckoo caught in a storm. When Hera took pity on the bird and held it to her breast to warm it, Zeus revealed his true form and seized his opportunity. Their marriage began with an act of deception, a dark omen for the centuries of betrayal that would follow. They were crowned king and queen, but their reign would be defined not by harmony, but by the echoes of Zeus's infidelity and Hera's escalating rage. Section 2. The Catalyst, Zeus's Betrayals. The celestial marriage certificate might as well have been blank, because Zeus began his legendary string of affairs almost immediately. For Hera, this wasn't just a private matter. It was a public and profound humiliation. Her entire divine identity was tied to the sanctity of marriage. Every affair Zeus had was a direct assault on her power, her authority, and her honor. And so, Hera's vengeance became just as legendary as Zeus's lust. But she rarely, if ever, aimed her wrath at her husband. Maybe she knew a direct fight with the king of the gods was a losing battle. Or maybe, in a painfully human twist, she chose to punish the women who had trespassed on her sacred territory. Her punishments weren't just simple acts of jealousy. They were masterpieces of torment, each one tailored to inflict the maximum amount of suffering. Take the Titaness Leto, pregnant with Zeus's children, Apollo and Artemis. Hera's fury was absolute. She cursed Leto, decreeing that she could not give birth on any land under the sun. Pursued by a monstrous serpent, the Typhon that Hera had sent after her, Leto wandered the earth in agony. Every kingdom turned her away, terrified of angering the queen of the gods. She finally found refuge on the floating island of Delos, which wasn't technically land, but Hera wasn't done. She held Eileithyia, the goddess of childbirth, hostage to prolong Leto's suffering for 9 agonizing days and nights, until the other gods finally intervened. Then there was Io, one of Hera's own priestesses. When Zeus wanted her, he hid his actions from his wife by covering the world in a thick blanket of clouds. But Hera wasn't so easily fooled. Sensing something was wrong, she descended from Olympus, scattering the clouds. In a panic, Zeus turned Io into a beautiful white cow. Unimpressed, Hera coolly asked for the cow as a gift, a request Zeus couldn't refuse without admitting his guilt. Hera then placed Io under the guard of Argus Panoptes, a giant with 100 eyes that never all slept at once. Even after Hermes killed the giant, Hera sent a vicious gadfly to sting the poor cow relentlessly, driving her mad on an endless journey across the world. That journey gave us a name we still use today, the Bosphorus Strait, which means Ox Passage, named for Io's desperate flight. Perhaps the cruelest fate befell Semele, a mortal princess from Thebes. When Hera discovered Semele was pregnant with Dionysus, she disguised herself as an old, trusted nurse. Playing on Semele's insecurities, Hera planted a seed of doubt. What if her lover wasn't Zeus, but some lesser god in disguise? She goaded Semele, convincing her that the only way to be sure was to ask him to reveal his true divine form. Bound by a sacred oath on the river Styx, a heartbroken Zeus had no choice but to comply. He appeared before her as the Lord of Thunder, and the unfiltered glory of his divine presence was too much for any mortal. Semele was instantly incinerated, consumed by the very god she loved. Through these horrific acts, Hera sent a clear message. She was not a queen to be trifled with. But punishing her rivals was only the beginning. As Zeus populated the world with his offspring, Hera's rage would take on a new, creative, and far more monstrous form. Section 3. The Pivot, Mother of Monsters. Hera's fury wasn't just destructive. It was generative. While Zeus was busy creating a lineage of demigod heroes without her, Hera decided she could create life on her own, too. If Zeus could have Athena spring fully formed from his own head, a solo act that mocked her role as matriarch, then she would answer in kind. She would create a son even stronger than Zeus. She would birth a monster. This brings us to a fascinating and contested story in Greek mythology, the birth of Typhon. Now, most sources, like the poet Hesiod, say Typhon was the son of Gaia, Earth, and Tartarus, the abyss. But a powerful alternate version, found in the Homeric hymn to Apollo, gives the credit or the blame entirely to Hera. Furious with Zeus for birthing Athena alone, Hera prayed to the ancient powers of the cosmos for a son who would surpass Zeus in strength. Through an act of pure parthenogenesis, she conceived and birthed a creature of unimaginable horror, Typhon. He was a monster so vast, his head brushed the stars, with 100 dragon heads sprouting from his shoulders. He was the father of all monsters, and according to this tradition, he was Hera's son. In some versions, she then gave the infant Typhon to the great serpent Python, the same one she sent to hunt Leto to be raised. Though Python was later slain by Apollo, Typhon grew to become the greatest challenge Zeus ever faced, a living embodiment of Hera's fury that nearly shattered the cosmos. Hera's solo experiments in creation didn't stop there. She would try again, this time determined to create a glorious son who was hers alone. The result was Hephaestus, the god of the forge. But something went wrong. In the myths where she conceives him alone, Hephaestus was born with a disability. Horrified and ashamed by this perceived imperfection, Hera cast her son from the heavens. Other traditions say it was Zeus who threw Hephaestus from Olympus for interfering in an argument. In either case, this rejected son, born of Hera's ambition and cast out by her pride, would grow up to become the master craftsman of the gods, his genius forged in the fires of rejection. Hera's maternal instincts also turned monstrous in another way. She became a foster mother to beasts, raising them for one specific purpose: to destroy Heracles, the greatest of Zeus's illegitimate sons, and the living symbol of her humiliation. She nurtured the Lernaean Hydra, a monstrous serpent whose heads multiplied when severed and whose breath was pure poison. The Hydra was the offspring of Typhon and Echidna, making it, in a way, the grandchild of Hera's own rage. She raised this beast in the swamps of Lerna specifically to kill Heracles as his second labor. For his very first labor, she chose another of Typhon's children, the Nemean Lion. This was no ordinary beast. Its golden fur was impenetrable to any weapon. Multiple sources confirm Hera raised this lion, setting it loose upon the hills of Nemea to terrorize the countryside. It was her hand-picked champion, another monstrous obstacle placed squarely in her hated stepson's path. After Heracles finally defeated the beast by strangling it, some traditions say, Hera placed the lioness image among the stars as the constellation Leo, a permanent celestial monument to her war against Heracles. Hera had moved beyond punishing Zeus's lovers. She was now creating and cultivating monsters, turning the very act of motherhood, her sacred domain, into a weapon. She had truly become the mother of monsters. Section 4. Analysis. A goddess of broken order. So, why does any of this matter? Because reframing Hera as a mother of monsters changes her entire story. She isn't just a jealous wife. She is a cosmic force of order whose own world has been thrown into chaos. And her monstrous creations are the direct result. Think about her domain: marriage, family, oaths, fidelity. These are the foundations of society. Zeus, with his endless affairs, doesn't just break his vows to her. He systematically undermines the very principles she embodies. He creates chaos in her realm of order. From her perspective, the great heroes like Heracles are not symbols of glory, but living monuments to her husband's disrespect. Her creation of monsters is a desperate, furious attempt to reclaim agency. Zeus creates life without her. She do the same. But where his creations are celebrated, hers are born of rage and shame. Hephaestus is born from her desire to match Zeus, but her shame at his perceived imperfection leads her to cast him out, creating a broken family dynamic that mirrors her own broken marriage. Typhon, in the tradition where she is his mother, is the ultimate act of this defiant creation. He isn't just a monster. He is a rival king, a power great enough to challenge Zeus for the throne of the cosmos itself. He is Hera's rage given form, a living weapon aimed at the heart of her pain. And her nurturing of the Hydra and the Nemean Lion for Heracles is the most pointed act of all. She uses the offspring of Typhon, the legacy of her own rage, to try and erase Zeus's legacy. It's one monstrous family attacking the family that has replaced hers. She can't attack Zeus directly, so she becomes a shepherd of nightmares, cultivating horrors to send against her husband's children. In this light, Hera isn't a simple villain. She's a tragic figure, a goddess of order, forced to use the weapons of chaos. Her monsters are a reflection of her reality. Her family is broken, her domain is violated, and her power is constantly challenged. So, she gives birth to creatures that embody that brokenness. Her actions, while terrifying, are the desperate acts of a queen trying to hold on to her crown in a kingdom that no longer respects her laws. Conclusion. Hera's story is a chilling reminder that even gods can be pushed to the brink. We remember her for her vengeance against women like Leto and Io, and for her relentless persecution of Heracles. But to see her only as a jealous shrew is to miss the profound tragedy at her core. She was the goddess of marriage, sworn to protect an ideal her own husband made a mockery of. Her rage, born from this ultimate betrayal, was a creative force as much as a destructive one. In some of the oldest stories, it led her to bring forth the father of all monsters in a defiant act of cosmic rebellion. It drove her to adopt the horrors of the mythological world, nurturing them and aiming them like weapons at the legacy of the man who had wronged her. Hera's monsters, Typhon, the Hydra, the Nemean Lion, were more than just beasts. They were extensions of her will, children of her pain, and soldiers in her eternal war against the chaos that had infested her sacred domain. While her actions were terrifying, they were born from a place of righteous fury. She is not just the queen of the gods. She is not just a vengeful wife. She is one of the most complex, powerful, and tragically human figures in all of mythology. A protector who, in her fight to defend her world, ended up creating the very monsters that threatened to tear it all down. If you enjoyed this journey into the dark side of the divine, make sure to like and subscribe for more mythological deep dives. Let us know in the comments which misunderstood monster or god you'd like us to explore next.